All right, let's look at another one of your brush options, pattern brushes. So once again, I'm going to make something to use as a pattern. I'm going to grab a rectangle tool, draw a rectangle, and I'm going to copy that rectangle by holding down the Alt key and clicking and dragging. And then I'm going to copy it again, Alt click and drag, and I'll change the color of the stroke, and then click away, select it, Alt click, drag again. I'm going to turn this into a pattern. I'm going to select all four of those little boxes there, make it a group, object group, so it's easier to manipulate. I can click and drag it into the swatches, into the brushes, or I can go to brush, new brush, and choose pattern brush, click OK. So when I create a pattern brush, there's a little menu here which allows me to change the scale, make it fixed or random. And then as you can see here, what we have here is I can make very sophisticated brushes. And if you imagine it's like a car moving along a track where I'm going around the outside of a curve, the inside of a curve, or a right turn or inside turn, I can load additional brushes into those elements there and create something very sophisticated. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to use the pattern I've already created. I'm going to type my pattern brush, click OK. And I've created my pattern brush. It's loaded into my brushes. Remember, I can, just like I could with the, I'm going to move my original shape out of the way, just like I could with the swatches, where I could save, if I save the canvas, it saves the brushes that I've created, and I can reload the brushes from a previous exercise into a new canvas. I can do that with the brushes as well. I'm going to select my new brush. Oops, my old brushes were still selected. I want to undo that, deselect everything. I'm going to select my new brushes, grab my brush tool, and when I paint now, I can paint with that pattern. So I can do some other things with that. Let's clear the screen. I'm going to select everything, delete it, and I'm going to use that same brush, but this time I'm going to apply it through the rectangle tool. So what I did in that case was I drew a rectangle, and with the rectangle still selected, I just clicked on the pattern, and now I've got this wonderful pattern for my canvas. Let's say I wanted to create like a beautiful border for my canvas. Now, the other thing I can do is load additional patterns and brushes. I click the tab here, and I can go down to Open Brush Library, and you'll see that there's a bunch of brushes that are preset in here. And you can also download additional brushes from various places on the internet, and I'll show you how to do that later, and load those into Illustrator. So let's say I want to come down and use borders, and I'll choose borders geometric. So here are some geometric borders, and I'll just undo the last step I made there. And then with this path still selected, click on one of the other borders. And as you can see here, I can apply these borders and make something that's very interesting and very helpful. Okay, so those brushes can be very useful. Let me throw that away. So when I'm painting with my brush, I'll go over and find my brushes. I'm going to double click. I can actually have the brush fill as well. If I click Fill New Brush Strokes, click OK. In addition to having a stroke, I can have a fill color. So if I choose a traditional nib and paint with this, it's going to fill the interior at the same time. So that used to be really difficult to do, is filling a shape like that. It used to be that the shape always had to be completely closed to fill. But I can fill while I'm painting, and I can take any shape and turn it into one of those pattern brushes. If I go over and grab one of my nibs, one of my art brushes, I'm sorry, bristle brushes. I'm going to grab one of my bristle brushes, and I'm going to grab my paintbrush, and I'm going to paint something on screen. And then in this case, I think what I'll do is I'll turn the fill off. and paint with that bristle brush again. And I'll just layer something together. There we go. So now we can change the color. And I'm going to trap select that. I'll make it a little smaller. And now I'm going to load that. New brush. I can load it as a pattern or scatter. I'm going to load it as a pattern brush. Click OK. There's my beautiful pattern brush made from my bristle brush. I'm going to deselect the original brush, grab my paintbrush, select my pattern brush, and I can paint with that. So you can do some very interesting things with that. And that really is a very good understanding of the mechanics of brushes. And we're going to move on to other tools in just a sec.